During the delivery, I came to realize again there is another cutting.
When you think of the severe health risks involved in FGM, you cannot help but wonder, why does this practice continue in so many countries?
Mtoto yako asipokeketwa utapata ng'ombe.
We see FGM as a threat to the potential of young girls.
What would it take to stop this?
We have realized that we cannot only use force.
My daughter will never go through this horrible pain.
We hope to shed some light to some of these questions. Welcome to the program. My name is Elijah Mwangi. But first things first, let's have some facts and figures about FGM.
According to the World Health Organization, about 200 million women and girls currently alive have undergone female genital mutilation. Abbreviated as FGM, the cultural practice is a procedure that intentionally alters the female genital organs for non-medical reasons. It is mostly practiced in Africa, the Middle East and Asia. Globally, the procedure is regarded as a violation of human rights due to its cruel, degrading and inhumane treatment of women and girls, which may result in a number of health complications. It is for this reason that numerous policies, regulations and laws have been put in place to combat this practice. These include the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, and the East African Community Prohibition of Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2016, among others. In Kenya, the Constitution under Article 29C provides for the right not to be subjected to any form of violence. Article 29F provides for the right not to be treated or punished in a cruel, inhuman, or degrading manner. Article 44.3 states that a person shall not compel another to perform, observe, or undergo any cultural practice or rite, while Article 53D protects children from abuse through harmful cultural practices. There is also the Children's Act of 2001 and the Prohibition of Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2011, which is the principal legislation governing FGM in Kenya. But even with all these laws, FGM is still practiced in the country, with many women and girls being forced to go through the cut out of fear of being excommunicated from their communities, failing to get a spouse, and even not being able to cook for their male children. For the Chamwada Report, my name is Michael Zimanji.
Female genital mutilation is a crime. Unfortunately, throughout the African history, women have been victims of this traditionally condoned form of violence. And this tradition has survived for thousands of years, killing the African woman silently.
We see FGM as a threat to the potential of young girls, women, and even adolescents.
At least 200 million girls alive today have undergone the cut globally, and an estimated 3 million girls are at risk of undergoing FGM annually. As part of the Sustainable Development Goals, this practice should be done away with by 2030. FGM in Africa is highly practiced in Guinea at 99%, Egypt at 97%, Mali at 92%, Sudan at 90%, followed by Ethiopia at 80%. According to the 2014 Kenya Demographic Health Survey, FGM nationwide has fallen to 21%.
We are glad that the President has given the nation the confidence of ending FGM by 2022.
While Kenya may seem to be doing well nationally, it has some communities that are performing way higher than the national percentage. The Somali community is leading with 97%, Abagusi at 96% and the Maasai at 94%. This is according to anti-FGM board. In 2013 December, through an act of parliament, anti-FGM board was formed to deal with the issues female circumcision. At the helm of the board is an FGM survivor and a mother of 5, Mrs. Benatit Loloju. Mrs. Loloju was only 13 years when a special party was thrown for her. She was told it would make her a woman.
When I was growing up, it was fashionable. It was something that you would want everyone to know that you have undergone. But today, the girls who undergo FGM are not really proud.
What they didn't tell her is the complications that come with this practice.
I got my first sale I was 19, and I didn't understand at that time that FGM would cause the pain I went through. So when the baby was just about to come, the nurse, I think she was an intern, she really abused me in the maternity ward. And why was she abusing me? She realized that I had been cut, and she realized that the baby could not come out as she wanted it. And she kept on telling me, stop pushing, because the baby will tear you apart. At the time when we were cut, my sister bled a lot. About 3 or 4 hours after that, she bled a lot, and she even fainted. And so traditionally, they would bring the old men to tie some grass and even spit on her and bless her because someone thinks maybe someone looked at her with bad eyes. Later on, I realized that it could have easily been fatal.
Meet Saida Hussein, coordinator, Daya Women Group, and an FGM survivor. At only 10 years, Saida had to go through the FGM ordeal.
So my mom took me to the bush, and the cutter was my grandmother actually. And together with other neighbors, I was taken to the bush early in the morning. They cut in the morning because they believe, your blood is not warm, so you will not bleed so much. But that's not true. Other women held me down on the earth, and once I was on the ground, now a piece of cloth was put in my mouth. Others were holding my head. Others were pressing me on the chest down so that I don't move. Others were holding my legs. And there was this cutter now, who was my grandmother. And there is another woman who was a director, like helping her on what was left, if it's perfect enough or something like that. So for me, I wasn't even prepared of what I was about to go through.
The deliberate cutting of the female genital is an act of control to prevent sexual enjoyment, but it can also lead to long-term health problems and even death.
I was on labor pain for 3 days. I was unable to give birth, and the traditional birth attendant who was helping me actually was afraid that I might lose the child, or I might lose my life because of the complications I went through. They used to cut me anyhow. Before I even gave birth, my mother told me I should buy reserves, but I didn't know what the reserves were for. And when I continued asking, what is it for? She told me it's for cutting the umbilical cord. So during the delivery, I came to realize again there is another cutting, because you cannot give birth without space, and you have to be cut for the baby to come out. They cut me anyhow. There is no formula for them because they just want the baby to come out.
Time now to show you a short graphic that shows different types of FGM by using artwork, not actual images. Other painful procedures include pricking, piercing, cutting, scrapping, or even burning the area. At this point, we take a short break, but when we return, we head to West Pokot and Baringo County as we seek to find out what the county governments are doing there to end FGM. Stay tuned. Welcome to West Pokot County. We are at Morpus Primary School that also doubles up as a rescue center for girls who are running from forced marriages, early marriages, and FGM.
We started a long time ago through the World Vision support, 2003 to date. And we have rescued over 400 girls.
In this school, we have girls as young as 10 years who have run away from forced marriages. Meet Beatrice, not her real name. She came from school one day only to find her father in marriage negotiation with her husband-to-be.
Nilikuwa naenda shule, nikakuja mpaka nyumbani, nikapata pikipiki yako kete. Nikashangaa, nikakuja mpaka nyumbani, nikamwambia mama, hiyo ni mapikipiki yako kete ya nini? Akasema sijui. Babangu akasema kuja yako mpaka hapa. Nikaenda, nikamwambia kuna watu wamekuja. Hao wamesema nimeona mtoto wa punda kwa hapa. Nikamwambia papa, kwani tuko na punda? Na hatuna punda. Nikasema hakuna punda mwingine, ni wewe ndio punda. Ndio akasema enda kwa huyu jamaa ndio tupatiene hiyo kijana yetu shule.
Beatrice is just among the few girls who have managed to escape early marriage and FGM. According to the West Pokot County Commissioner Apollo Okello, the war on FGM is being won. However, the perpetrators are now changing tactics.
The way it is done is not used to what used to be done earlier on, where you could get a number of girls put together in a home or in a village, and then it is done and celebrated. This is because of the fear that this practice has been outlawed, and therefore they now do it very, very secretively. And one of the ways where it is done now, they engage the services of our clinical officers very secretively without any celebrations, and therefore it becomes quite a challenge. Sometimes they also take the girls to visit other relatives, and the practice will be done there, and it will not really be suspected by law enforcement officers that this is done.
There's a lot of training going around for girls at the age of mostly 9 to 13. So they want to cut the girls before you train them, because the moment girls are trained, then they themselves are refusing to be cut. It's happening even though we don't have the data. We are still looking at including the indicators in the KDHS, the next KDHS, which we are hoping will happen in this year 2020, just to see what is the percentage of children who are getting cut as of now.
The national prevalence is 21%. But again, in every community, the prevalence is much higher than the national prevalence. In my community itself, it's 94%, according to the demographic health survey. So you can imagine now, 9 out of 10 girls have already gone through FGM. That tells you a lot. And the biggest challenge now is when people don't see FGM as a threat or a crisis, simply because it's hidden. Assuming today, and I always say this, assuming today my lips and my nose were cut, assuming today the 21% national, that's 9.3 million women in Kenya alone, walking without their noses and their lips, what would happen? Assuming today the 200 million worldwide were walking with their lips and noses cut, what would have happened? It would be an international crisis. But since it's a hidden genitalia, nobody knows what we are going through. People are suffering in silence. And that really makes me mad, because explaining to someone what FGM really means is not easy, because it's not something you can describe.
Even as the war against FGM intensify and perpetrators are brought to book, the police face a few challenges.
This is a practice which is deeply rooted among the community, and therefore we've not had the political goodwill or support from the elected leaders. And this also makes it a little bit difficult, because you'll hardly get an elected leader openly talking against this vice.
Despite the challenges, Mr. Okello concurs there has been progress.
Overall, if you look at what was happening in this county about 15 years ago, I can say for a fact that the efforts of various organizations and the administration in general has led to reduction in the number of, or in the practice of FGM in the county.
Currently, it's not as serious as the way it used to be before. 10 years ago, I think the rate of FGM practice was over 90%. Right now, I would say it's below 30%.
The biggest impediment against this war is cross-border FGM.
We have information that a number of these cases are done in across the border. When they cross over to Uganda, it becomes a little bit difficult for us to apprehend them and bring them to book.
Deep in Baringo County, Tiati constituency, we meet a group of Morans who have resolved to fight FGM in Kalpunyany village.
Nina watoto watano, 4 ni wasichana na 1 ni mvulana. Niliamua hawatakeketwa sababu nilikuwa nimeonanga shida, sababu baba yangu ni yule mzee wa zamani na walikuwa na wanawake wengi, wasichana wengi, na walikuwa wanakeketwa. Kati ya wasichana wetu wengi hata saa hii hawako, sababu walikeketwa na wakaolewa mapema. Alafu wakati wa kujifungua kuna wengine hawakuishi. Alafu wakati nilisoma kidogo nikakuja kugundua kwamba kumbe ile shida ya watu kufariki baada ya kupata mimba ama wajawazito ni kwa sababu ya kukeketwa.
This silent tragedy has been able to maintain itself through ignorance, superstitions and misconceptions.
Alafu shida moja kwa sisi hapa kikwetu, hawaamini kwamba hii kukeketwa ndio wanafanya akina mama kuaga dunia kwa sababu wakati wa ujauzito. Watoto wangu hata kakeketwa kamwe. Hata nimeeleza marafiki zangu wengi, nimeambia jamani, ukikeketa mtoto yako unajitafutia shida.
Mimi saa hii kukaa hivi kusikia mali iko watu nataka kukeketaji, mimi nasikia uchungu kabisa.
However, for Saida and Bernadette, they hope to see this vice completely abandoned.
Most of the communities, like some of the Kalenjin communities, some of the Maasai, Samburu community, the Samburu community is very attached to all these traditional. You have to be cut for you to cut your son, for you to be able to do this in the community. And this is one area that the communities themselves have to make decisions on. Like I can say, we have had a breaking of the curse among the Laikipia, whereby the elders have come together and said that they are breaking the curse, that there should be nobody who should be told that because you did not get cut, then you should not do this.
Many girls and women are really suffering in silence. Not all survivors want to come out and speak. Not all survivors are prepared to protect their daughters, simply because they fear the community stigma and also. But what we don't know is also that survivors like me share their stories. We are exploited again to the world. because the world now further stigmatizes the survivors. So at some point I feel like, where should we go? If you want to run from community stigma and go through FGM, now the world will stigmatize you as a survivor. If you remain uncut and be valued by the world, again you will go through a horrible community stigma. So alhamdulillah, this is a culture we really need to abandon, so that all girls feel equal, all girls at least enjoy their life without going through a cultural struggle.
Worrying statistics there, and we can only hope that things will change for the better. And that marks the end of our show. On behalf of the entire Chams media team that has made this production a success, thank you so much for watching and see you next time. My name remains Elijah Mwangi.